So good afternoon, learners. This is the second live interactive session for the course on psychology of language. And what I'll do today is I'll take questions from you and try to answer them for you. So since we are here for this interaction, let's not waste any more time. People who are here should start asking questions and I'll try and answer them based on whatever knowledge I have gathered up till now on this course or on this topic of the psychology of language. So before you start answering, or the moment you have a question, you can always put that question to me through the chat or come online and put those questions to me. So till that happens, I'll take up questions from the Excel sheet which has been circulated for me. And in the meanwhile, as you join this live session, if you have questions, you can start asking them by either raising your hands, coming online. There's several ways of interacting, so do that. So in the meanwhile, since I don't have a question right now, let me start taking questions from this response feed that was circulated for me. So the first question is asked by Sarul Singh, and there isn't a question actually. The next is Yogita Sahu, and Yogita Sahu asks the question, is the date of the examination fixed? I wouldn't be in my examination city the next day as I'll have to return to my university. So I think the dates for this examination are fixed by NPTEL main, which is at IIT Madras, and I guess these are all fixed. So I think the question came to me in the forum as well, so I forwarded it to the concerned people who look at this, and I think they would have answered. But to the best of my knowledge, I guess the dates are fixed. The next question comes from Vishu Raj, and Vishu Raj wants to know, respected sir, in our NPTEL examination, what percentage of questions will be from assignment? Please reply, sir. So since the course is a little bit higher than for higher level than the general courses that appear on NPTEL, you will have a fair amount of question from the assignment in your examination, basically meaning that if you do your assignment properly, you will acquire good marks in your examination, in your upcoming NPTEL examination. So I'd say a fair amount. No, I cannot give you a percentage or the number of questions that would appear, but I'll say a fairly good amount of questions from the assignment, either in a modified form or as it is, will appear in your NPTEL examination. The next question is from Anshu Raj, and Anshu Raj has a question: how much time take time to next enrollment dates are announced? For this particular course, I guess the next enrollment would appear in July 2023 for the psychology of language. But if you have different courses in mind, each semester there is a course and you can get enrolled. But if you're only concerned, or if you're looking for enrollment to the psychology of language, that should happen, because we've not decided as of yet if you're floating the course or not. But if it is floated, then the enrollment would begin somewhere in late July 2023. Then I have Love Sinha, and the question is that the examination date for the course is 29th, 30th October, but the problem is that 29th is Chhat Puja, and so 30th there will be Pehli Arag in all over the region of Bihar. It's a kind request. Please give us the solution to this issue. We'll be grateful if you like for this. So Love Singh, the problem here is that I don't hold the examination. The examinations are done by NPTEL IIT Madras, and looking at number of students that appear, they decide a comprehensive date by looking at the number of courses which are there, the number of students that you appear. It's out of my hand to give a solution as of for this. What I'll do is I'll take your request and I'll forward it to the concerned people at NPTEL IIT Madras, and let's say how do they react to this, or what is the solution that they give to this. If they have a solution, I'll forward it to you, or they may get in touch with you directly and put a question. The next question is by Santosh P, and Santosh asks the questions are in week 7, assignment number 8, third question. Homographs are words that are, I think both option C and option B are correct. Homographs are words that are spelled similar but pronounced differently and can have different meanings. Please clear my doubt. And so there are three things: homophones, homographs, and homonyms. Homophones are words which they sound similar and they have different meaning, and homographs are words which are they appear similar but the meaning are different. So I don't know the option C because I have not seen the option B and C, but remember that the options that I have in the questions are given based on the best possible answer. The difference here is that in phones, they sound similar, but they have different meaning. And in graphs, they are spelled similar. So different pronunciation or different meaning. So that is the primary difference that I can see. I think in the option, I wouldn't have written meaning. Maybe that is what is confusing you. So, but that's what the definitions are. So phones are words, homophones are words which are similar sounding words but different meaning, and homographs are words which are spelled similar, for example TOO and TO, that kind of a thing, but they have a different meaning altogether. So I don't have the options in front of me, so I cannot exactly tell you which is right and which is not. Looking at your discretion, you can decide which options are correct. Always remember the option that matches the most closest to the answer would be the one that is the say the most appropriate answer. So then I have Anushika, and Anushika asked the question: are text notes and weekly assignments enough for the online examination? Since the videos are very informative and difficult to learn. So Anushika, yes, I do understand that the text and videos are a little bit difficult to understand, but if you have, since the course was floated not for the purpose of for general public, but it was floated for people who are interested in learning the psychology of language. Also understand the course had a input or basically the viewpoint from a psychological perspective to language. So we are not linguists, I'm not linguist, and so it didn't have a linguistic outlook or linguistic viewpoint. So very briefly then, an answer to your question is yes, looking at the text note or reading the text note and assignments would do far better than getting concerned with some of the issues which are discussed in the lectures. Much better idea would be to actually read a book on psychology of language. So that Carroll's book is there, and then some other books are there which I have prescribed in the in the course itself. So what you could do is you could take any of the books and you can start reading a little bit. And there's a lot of literature available online also. You can start reading that, and that would give you new insights or newer meaning. But all in all, to summarize the answer to your question, or to summarize, to give a short answer to your question, reading the notes and assignments, doing the assignments, and looking at the video slides should be enough for doing good on your examination, right? But it's always a good thing to read books, which will provide you more information and more ideas to write answers. And since these questions that we have is multiple choice, so reading a book would give you a different perspective altogether. So the next question is by Saji Krishna. And Saji Krishna asked the question, could you elaborate on the latest discovery on how language is stored in the brain? So the idea of language in the brain from when it started was focusing on two areas of Broca and Wernicke. Broca with language production and Wernicke with comprehension. These are Brodmann area 42 and 43. So specialized area. Now, as you would know that language is an acquired skill. Smaller animals or larger animals also don't have languages. They have a communication system, which could not be called a fully fledged language. So the way we look at language or the way we treat language, it's something which the brain was really not ready to or really didn't have an area dedicated to it. But as human beings progressed and language developed, some areas of the brain were modified for learning language. And two basic areas that came to be known as the language areas, the Broca and the Wernicke area. But if you're asking me for newer areas, language involves a lot of things. It involves symbols. And this connection of these symbols, these arbitrary, and these symbols that I'm talking about are arbitrary in nature, because in one language, the way things are written or the constructs are written, and in another language, the way the constructs are written may be entirely different. I've discussed this issue before. So what happens is that an interpretation of these symbols, arbitrary symbols, had to be made. And also, not only that, what the construct means has to also be to be imagined or to be thought of or integrated, which means that it requires both visual and auditory areas. So if you ask for the latest discovery in terms of how language is stored, basically the newest thing that we talk about, in addition to the idea about Wernicke and Broca area, is the hippocampus, which is the memory area, or I'd say the working memory area, because memory is important. Any language that you have is a symbol, and this symbol needs to be connected to a construct. So a lot of areas are involved, or a lot of I'd say brain areas are involved in language beside the Wernicke and Broca area, which are known to be the main areas. The newest discoveries right in 2019 and 2018, if you look at some papers from frontiers in neuroscience, they talk about the area of hippocampus and putamen and some higher cerebral cortex area. So these are the areas which are involved. And how it is stored? So it is basically not stored, I'd say, at one area. Language is stored in multiple areas. It has multiple accesses. So you have a what system and a how system, basically again describing the Broca and the Wernicke. And so the idea of how language is stored is much closer now to how memory is stored. And so if you know about a little bit about how memory is stored in the brain, memory is both stored as a place and as a network. Similar to that is the idea of language, which says that language is not stored just at one basic location. So sometimes it is stored as a connection between different areas, and sometimes it is stored at different locations. For example, if you have auditory input on auditory language is stored, it's basically processed by the auditory area, secondary auditory area. Or if it's a visual, then there are visual areas. And then if there is a transfer to be done, or connections to be done, then or some kind of memory input is needed in it, then you have the hippocampus also coming in. So these are the new discoveries. You can read a little bit more. And one more thing, since I'm not involved in research on language as such, so I have very limited knowledge on this. What I would suggest you to do is to look at good journals which talk about this. For example, there is a journal of psycholinguistics you can look at, or you can look at Frontiers in Human Language. This is another good journal. For Frontiers in Neuroscience, another good journal to look at. And these journals will provide you more recent development in the area of language, brain, and psycholinguistics. So I hope that answers your question. Saji Krishna. And then the last question is by Sindhuja. So Sindhuja asked the question. So how do we get high scores in exam? Oh, so how do you get high scores in exam? There are two ways to do it. One, follow the lectures. So don't just cram the lecture or look at the lecture in one go. Break up the lectures into many parts. And all throughout the day, you can look at parts of it and then try combining what it means. If you still have a question, you can do a little bit of research from your own side. So basically look at a book or some papers or some kind of online available literature. And after doing all of this, if you still don't find an answer, you write to me. So when we do something, when we get into the process of doing something or finding something, what happens is our motor responses gets added to it. So with the brain, a motor response when gets added to it, the chances of doing something or remembering something increases. So using a motor response, and that is why it is said the best way to learn a lesson is to write it down. When you associate a motor response or a motor action with memory, it gets better. So that's one thing. The other thing would be to do the assignments properly. Look at what the answers of the assignments are. A fair number of assignment marks will go over to your final exam. And even if you do assignment, let's say don't get an assignment correct, still the answers will be available to you. So ask yourself, why is this answer given to me? And chances are that a modified form of that question, or maybe the same question, or a little bit, I'd say, twisted version of the question would appear in your exam. So looking at the lectures, reading the notes of the lectures and looking at the slides, and also doing the assignments should do good for you in terms of doing this course. One other thing is, if you have time or if you get interested, take up a book that I have prescribed, or any book on psycholinguistics, and read a little bit. If you do that, or even literature which is available on the internet, but go to a secure site, like a site which gives you authenticated knowledge. Don't go to Wikipedia, because that's not going to give you correct knowledge. Sometimes Wikipedia pages are written by people all over the place. So go to an authenticated, you can go to MIT Courseware website, or go to some good website which provides enough knowledge, and that should be more than enough for providing you answers to your question. So do the first two steps, and if it still doesn't work out, you can always put a question onto the forum, put it directly to me, and I can answer that. So these are the questions that were put on this response sheet, and I guess I have answered most of them to the best of my knowledge and to the best of your satisfaction. Now, for people who are online with me, if you have questions, you may ask those, and let's start discussing your questions. Right. So now is the time to ask questions. So I'm waiting here online for you. Go ahead, ask your questions. Because there are 4 people online right now. 1 is myself and 3 more people. So if you have questions, please ask. Always remember that this course is not meant for basic level students. So basically, it is actually a UG course, but it's not meant for the entry level course. So it requires some kind of a pre-knowledge about psychology and language, and then from there on it builds on. So and since this was an introductory course, so not much was covered into it, or a very limited scope was covered into it. And also what we're doing is, when I was doing this course, I tried to to kind of limit myself into only looking at the process of language from the psychological viewpoint. I didn't go into the linguistic viewpoint because that's what linguists would do. So I restricted myself into looking at only the psychological viewpoint to understanding language. So that's from my side for today. If you have questions, I'll be waiting here. We'll wait for another 5 minutes or maximum 5 to 10 minutes. If you don't have questions, what I'll do is I'll sign off. But that doesn't mean you cannot ask questions to me. There is a forum where you can put in your questions and I can answer them. If not the forum, you can directly put a question to me. There is an email there where you can put a question to me. And depending on the time available to me and the availability that I have, I'll try to answer your questions. So these are the two ways to reach me. Live session is a good way to interact. And since we're here and some of you are here, so if you have a question, I'd ask you to put it to me.
Sir, good evening.
Yes, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir. Sir, myself Bhupesh Kohli.
Yes,
I am
Bhupesh.
doing PhD from Manav Rachana University.
Okay, Bhupesh.
Sir, I am heading the channel Sahara Samay National News Channel.
Okay.
Since last 3 years.
Okay.
I have done my post-graduation from Punjab Technical University in Masters in Mass Communication.
Good.
तो ये सर हमारे उसमें ड्यूरिंग पीएचडी हमको ये कहा गया था कि आपको ज्वाइन करना है, ये साइकोलॉजी ऑफ लैंग्वेज का कोर्स हमको करना है.
ओके.
तो उसमें सर वो मैं असाइनमेंट जो आते जा रहे हैं वीकली वो भी मैं करके भेजता जा रहा हूँ. उसके असेसमेंट के नंबर्स भी मेरे ठीक आ रहे हैं. वो मैं आपके लेक्चर्स भी सुनता हूँ. तो उसमें मैं सर ये जानना चाहता हूँ 29 या 30 को जो हमारा एग्जाम होगा उसको क्या हम हिंदी में लिख सकते हैं?
भूपेश, ऐसा है कि ये एग्जैक्टली हमें भी नहीं पता है कि हिंदी में कोर्स बनते हैं कि नहीं, राइट? ये NPTEL जो IIT मद्रास है वो डिसाइड करती है कि क्या करना है. हमें सिर्फ ये बताया जाता है कि कोर्स पढ़ाना है आपको और कोर्स होल्ड करना है और इंटरेक्शन करना है. तो एक बेहतर आपके लिए सजेशन ये रहेगा कि आप IIT मद्रास NPTEL से डायरेक्टली बात करें या फिर मैं एक काम करता हूँ, मैं आपके क्वेश्चन को लेके मैं उनको फॉरवर्ड कर देता हूँ. मोस्ट प्रोबेबली जो कोर्स बना है, जो क्वेश्चन पेपर बना है वो इंग्लिश में बना है. तो मेरे ख्याल से वो शायद नहीं अलाउ करें. दैट इज माय हंच, मुझे ऐसा लगता है, बट आई रियली डोंट नो कि ऐसा है कि नहीं. अगर वो अलाउ
क्वेश्चन पेपर बेशक इंग्लिश में हो, हम हिंदी में आंसर कर देंगे क्योंकि हिंदी में ज्यादा फ्लो है. लगातार 20 साल से हिंदी मीडियम हिंदी चैनल में काम कर रहे हैं, तो वो फ्लो एक हिंदी में रहेगा जो अपने मन की बात उसमें कर पाएंगे, अच्छे से एक्सप्लेन कर पाएंगे चीजों को, ऐसा मुझे लगता है. बाकी तो इंग्लिश में भी कर लेंगे.
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल भूपेश जी, इसमें कोई ये नहीं है कि आप कर सकते. देखिए ये जो क्वेश्चंस आपके पास होंगे वो सारे मल्टीपल चॉइस होंगे, तो इसमें लैंग्वेज मैटर नहीं करता है. जनरली आपको एक चॉइस देना है, राइट? तो उसके लिए कोई दिक्कत नहीं है. आप मेरे ख्याल से आप वैसा कर सकते हैं, राइट? बट क्वेश्चन इज इटसेल्फ हमको ऐसा नहीं बताया गया कि हिंदी में बनाइए. अगर हमको पहले बताया जाता है तो हमने क्वेश्चन हिंदी में बनाए होते. अगर उनका कोई ऐसा सॉफ्टवेयर है जो उसको कन्वर्ट कर दे, देन मुझे नहीं पता. अगर ऐसा होगा तो मैं पता कर लूंगा, बट मैंने आपके क्वेश्चन को नोट कर लिया, मैं उनको बता दूंगा. इसके अलावा अगर आपको कोई सवाल हो, अगर आपको कुछ पूछना हो, क्योंकि हिंदी एक अच्छा मीडियम है, मैं भी मानता हूँ, बट दिक्कत ये है कि हिंदी में व्यूअर्स बहुत कम होते हैं आपके लिए, और बहुत कम लोग होते हैं जो कि आपके साथ एसोसिएट इस हाई लेवल पे हायर लेवल का एजुकेशन लेते हों. तो हम भी ये सोच रहे थे कि हिंदी में कोर्सेज करने के लिए, बट टेकर्स बहुत कम है उसके लिए, क्योंकि वो अतिरिक्त मेहनत मुझे लगेगी. समझना पड़ेगा, मेरा खुद का एजुकेशन हिंदी में नहीं है, तो मुझे समझना पड़ेगा और बनाना पड़ेगा. तो ये बहुत पॉसिबल है कि आप जो कह रहे हैं वो पॉसिबल हो. तो आप एक काम करें कि ईमेल लिख दें NPTEL IIT मद्रास को, और मैं आपके क्वेरी को उनको फॉरवर्ड कर दूंगा, और वो जैसा रिस्पॉन्स करें वो डायरेक्टली आपको रिस्पॉन्स कर सकेंगे. बट मुझे नहीं लगता है कुछ चिंता करना चाहिए, क्योंकि जो रिस्पॉन्सेज होते हैं वो आपको टिक मार्क होते हैं, और उसी से
वो तो जैसा आपका पेपर होता है वैसे ही होता है.
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल.
सैंपल पेपर आता है
बस, तो उसमें फिर ये मैटर नहीं करता है कि आप हिंदी में करें या इंग्लिश में करें. दैट मुझे नहीं लगता कि वो मैटर करता है, राइट?
जी सर. थैंक यू सर.
थैंक यू. So Other people who are here would like to ask a question. I'll wait for another 5 more minutes. आपके पास कोई सवाल हो, if you have a question, if you wish to ask, please go ahead and ask the question. All those learners who are with me, who wish to ask a question, please go ahead, ask a question. I'm here for another 5 to 7 minutes if you don't ask a question. Also, don't worry if you don't have a question presently and if you wish to ask those questions to me, what you could do is always write a question onto the forum itself and I can answer that question for you. Or you could put in a question directly to an email. I'll answer the question to you on the email. So those two methods are also available. But if you are here and if you wish to ask the question, you might ask it right now and live. I have a question by Sindhuja, and Sindhuja asks, is it enough for the study to study only the assignments for scoring high marks in the exam? So assignments are good, but you do need to also study a little bit of the slides and the lectures that have been provided to you. So look at that, and I think that should be more than enough for you. So Shiv Shankar asked the question, Ram sir, question multiple या subjective और negative भी होते हैं. So multiple ही आएंगे questions and negative नहीं होता है. सी क्वेश्चन आंसर करने में आपको एक बात का ध्यान रखना है कि कई ऐसे आंसर्स होते हैं जो कि आपको ये लगेंगे कि वो क्वेश्चन का आंसर है, बट वो डिस्ट्रैक्टर होंगे. तो बहुत बार ऐसा होता है कि क्लोजेस्ट आंसर जो होता है वो आपको लगे आधा अधूरा, बट आपको वो आंसर चुनना है जो मोस्ट अप्रोप्रिएट होगा. जैसे अभी किसी ने मुझे ये क्वेश्चन भेजा था होमोग्राफ एंड होमोफोन पे, एंड कहीं मैं शायद मीनिंग लिखना भूल गया, तो क्वेश्चन आया था कि दोनों एक ही है. सो बेसिकली वो आंसर आपको चुनने हैं जो कि मोस्ट अप्रोप्रिएट आंसर हो. और कभी कभी डिस्ट्रैक्टर्स ऐसे बनाए जाते हैं मल्टीपल चॉइस क्वेश्चन में जो आपको डिस्ट्रैक्ट करें कि आपको ये लगे कि शायद ये आंसर है ना, आप उसको चूज करें. सो उस तरीके से आपको देखना है कि जो क्वेश्चन आंसर्स क्लोजेस्ट हो और मोस्ट अप्रोप्रिएट हो उसको चुनना है. ऑफ कोर्स जो क्वेश्चंस आपको दिए जाएंगे वो मल्टीपल चॉइस नहीं है, नहीं उसका कोई नेगेटिव मार्किंग है. एंड आप ये देखिए कि काफी ज़्यादा से लॉट ऑफ क्वेश्चंस और फेयर अमाउंट ऑफ क्वेश्चन, एक अच्छा प्रोपोर्शन ऑफ क्वेश्चंस जो कि आपके असाइनमेंट में थे वो आपके उसका एक मॉडिफाइड वर्जन या उसका एक अवतरित वर्जन आपको मेन एग्जाम में भी मिलेगा. So I hope that answered your question. And if you have any other questions, other people have questions, you may go ahead and ask those questions to me. I'm here live with you. If you don't have a question, I'm here for another 5-10 minutes and you can ask those questions to me. So you're invited to ask your questions, and if there is something you wish to discuss, I'm here to take up those as well. So learners, any questions? If you have, please go ahead, ask the questions. You can also come online. You can, if you want to interact, you can come online. You can put up your video cameras and interact with me. Whichever way suits you. If you have a question, please go ahead, ask. ओके शिव शंकर, मैं देखता हूँ कि नोट्स कहाँ पे है, एंड आई थिंक डाउनलोडेबल है. नोट्स यानी कि आपको हर एक लेक्चर के साथ एक PDF होगा जो शायद अपलोडेड होगा। अगर नहीं है तो मैं एक काम करूँगा, आई विल अपलोड दोज नोट्स फॉर यू एंड आप शायद उसमें से डाउनलोड कर सकें और उसको पढ़ सकें। तो मैं आज ही देखता हूँ। मोस्ट प्रोबेबली आई विल अपलोड ऑल द नोट्स इन आइदर इन वन गो, एक जगह पे, या फिर हर एक लेक्चर के साथ, और आप उसको डाउनलोड करके पढ़ सकें। सो आई होप दैट आंसर्स द क्वेश्चन। Any other questions if you have? So I don't think we have any more questions. And so what I'll do is I'll wrap up this session for live questions. This doesn't mean that you cannot get in touch with me. You can always write a question onto the forum, or what you could do is you could put a question directly to me. If you're hearing me, if you're one of the learners who want to understand a little bit about psychology of language, have a feedback or a suggestion, or maybe have a query or some kind of knowledge to share, you can always use the forum or put a questions directly to me, put your suggestions directly to me through the email provided to me. Read the assignments properly, look at the video lectures, break it up into parts, and then look at the lectures. Read the associated notes with it, and if possible, read a book on the psychology of language, and that should be more than enough for you for passing the exam with good marks. So since there are no more questions, what I'll do is I'll conclude the session for today here. So I wish you all a very good examination, and wishing you all the best for getting very good marks and coming out of flying colors in your examination. So this is me, Naveen Kashyap, signing off from the MOOC studio for this live session on psychology of language. So thank you and goodbye.